This is a little music box. And I'm not sure why it's not working. But it's supposed to play a little song. The little prongs hit these little things and it makes music. Now you say, why are you showing me this, Mrs. Baldwin? Well, I don't know why it's not playing. Isn't that cool? Well, the reason I'm showing you this, and this is my little music box, is because the book I'm going to read to you has a music box in it. This is called Great Joy by Kate DiCamillo, and that's going to just play in the background. That's Edelweiss. It's a song from The Sound of Music, and it's about a flower, and it's the flower of the country. But in the old country, back in the old days, people would have a music box and they would turn the handle, and they called it an organ grinder because he turned the handle. It was like a grinding motion. So in this book, which is beautiful, and it's illustrated by Bagram Ibatulin, I can't say the name, but he has done some other great illustrations. This is such a wonderful book by Kate DiCamillo, who wrote Because of Winn-Dixie, and a lot of great, great books. Oh, she wrote the Mercy Watson books. But she wrote this, and it's a very touching story called Great Joy. And this is the man in New York City who is turning the handle and creating music, kind of like what you heard, but he has a gimmick. And the gimmick is a little monkey, a trained monkey, wearing a little cap. And if he played music and a monkey came over to you with a hat, would you put a coin in it? Oh, you bet I would. So he plays the music, and then the monkey goes around and passes the hat, and you put coins in. And people, street performers, still do this to this day. If you were to go in the subway, you might see someone playing the violin or playing the guitar, and their guitar case would be open, and you're supposed to throw money in it. Or a magician on the side performing, or an acrobat, street performers, and they get paid when you tip them for doing a good job or making you laugh. So here is a very sweet-looking man with a monkey, and it's winter. The week before Christmas, a monkey appeared on the corner of Fifth and Vine. He was wearing a green vest and a red hat, and with him was a man, an organ grinder, who played music for the people on the street. In the daytime, when the sun shone, the sequins on the monkey's vest glittered and flashed, and from the window of her apartment, Frances could see the tin cup he'd hold out to people who walked by. Sometimes, if it were very quiet for just a minute, she could hear the music. It came across the crowded sidewalk and up through the windows, and even though the organ grinder and the monkey were just across the street, the songs sounded sad and far away, like the music from a dream. "Where do they go at night?" Frances asked. "Who?" said her mother. "That man and his monkey." "Oh, Frances," said her mother, "don't ask me questions that I can't answer. I'm sure they go somewhere. Everyone goes somewhere." "But where?" asked Frances. "I have no idea," said her mother. "Now turn around." Frances turned. Her mother pinned the bottom of her robe. "There. Now all I have to do is hem it and you'll be ready. Have you memorized your line?" "Yes," said Frances. "Are you excited about the pageant?" "Yes," said Frances. And she turned away from her mother and looked out the window at the monkey. That night, Frances made herself stay awake. She hummed songs and set her multiplication tables. She named the capitals of each state: St. Paul, Tallahassee, Harrisburg, one after the other. Every time she felt as if she might fall asleep, she shook her head and pinched her arm and opened her eyes wide. Finally, it was midnight. Frances got out of bed and crept down the hallway to the living room. She looked down onto the street. She saw the organ grinder, but where was the monkey? Her heart thumped, and then she saw him tucked inside the man's overcoat, his small red hat still on his head. "Look at me," Frances whispered. "Look up here." It was the organ grinder who looked up. He took his cap from his head, and he raised it to her. "They sleep on the street," Frances said the next morning, "even when it snows." "Oh, Frances," said her mother, maybe they could come for dinner." "No, they can't come for dinner," said her mother. "Why not?" "They're strangers, that's why. Eat your breakfast, Frances. You've got a big day ahead of you." All that day it snowed. But by evening, in time for the pageant, the sky cleared. The snow was so deep that Frances had to wear her boots for the walk to the church. The organ grinder and the monkey were still on their corner. Frances ran up and put a nickel in the monkey's cup. "I'm going to be in the Christmas play tonight," she said. "I get to wear wings, and I have one line to say. Do you want to hear it?" "Frances," her mother said, "we're going to be late. Let's go." "You can come," Frances said, turning back. "The play is at the church. It's just down the street. You can both come." The organ grinder smiled at her, but his eyes looked sad. At the church, everyone was already in their costumes. "Hurry," the choir director said as he helped Frances put on her wings. The shepherds walked out first. Then the choir director pointed to Frances. "Now," he whispered. Frances stood very still. She opened her mouth, but the words would not come. "Say it," whispered one of the shepherds. "Say it," hissed an angel who did not have any lines of her own. The camel, which was really two people, swayed nervously back and forth. But Frances could not speak. All she could think about was how cold it was outside and how sad the organ grinder's eyes were, even when he smiled. The world was quiet. Everyone waited. Then, at the back of the sanctuary, a door opened. Frances smiled. "Behold," she shouted, "I bring you tidings of great joy." And because the words felt so right, Frances said them again. "Great joy." Isn't that a great story? She included him. She didn't have to include him. She couldn't invite him for dinner, but she included him. And he came to the church. And I think, when you look at that picture at the end, I think that maybe he's made some friends, and maybe he won't have to sleep on the street in the snow anymore because she invited him. Sometimes just a little bit of kindness can bring you great joy.